Welcome to Spectrum News within the week, a recap of major stories. My name is Uyai and you can come to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Let's have a run through the stories.
By the
President
collapse of two
Buhari
US
reappoints Gambo Aliyu as NACA Director General. FAAC shares 722.7 billion naira February revenue to federal government, state and local governments. Plus, Akwa Ibom State Governor Udom Emmanuel appreciates the people of the state for their good judgment in the Saturday's governorship election. Details of these stories and more in a moment. Thanks for joining us. First in the news this afternoon is Nigeria's leader, President Muhammadu Buhari, who has approved the renewal of the appointment of Gambo Aliyu as the Director General of the National Agency for the Control of AIDS, NACA. The head of Public Relations and Protocol of NACA, Toyin Aderigbe, made this known in a press statement made available to newsmen. According to the statement, the approval of his reappointment was conveyed by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa. Aliyu was first appointed on the 26th of June 2019 after his predecessor, Professor Sani Aliyu, resigned from the agency 1 year before the end of his tenure. According to the statement, the reappointment of Dr. Aliyu takes effect from June 26, 2023 for a final term of 4 years. Meanwhile, President Buhari within the week urged Muslims to use Ramadan season to project the best and finest virtues of Islam by personal conduct and not precept. In a goodwill message to mark the holy month of Ramadan, Buhari called on Muslim faithful to practice the teachings of Islam such as kindness and the love of humanity as they observed the 30 days of Ramadan fasting. According to a statement by his senior special assistant on media and publicity, Galbar Shehu, the president noted that the Ramadan is characterized by abstention from food and drinks from dawn to dusk. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs also enjoined Muslim faithful to devote themselves fully to the worship of Allah throughout the holy month, urging them to use the period to pray for the progress, peace, and prosperity of the nation. In the meantime, the president within the week signed copyright and medical school bills passed by the National Assembly into law. The senior special assistant to the president in National Assembly matters, House of Representative Nasiru Ilah, made this known in a statement. According to Ilah, the president assented to the bills on March 17. He noted that the enactment of the new Copyright Act has again demonstrated the commitment of the president's administration to re-energizing Nigeria's creative economy and making it more globally competitive in the digital age. Still on Nigeria's leader, President Buhari within the week launched the National Counterterrorism Center, NCTC. The facility he declares would serve as his major infrastructural legacy to the incoming administration to effectively coordinate national security and counterterrorism efforts. Buhari made the declaration during the inauguration of two state-of-the-art facilities, including the new office of the National Security Advisor, ONSA, in Abuja. As part of efforts to address the protracted challenge of insecurity, particularly terrorism and violent extremism. Speaking at the inauguration, the president noted that his administration has checkmated agitators in the southeast and to a lesser extent the southwest, which have been experiencing separatist agitations. Meanwhile, President Buhari in Abuja within the week said his government had sufficiently degraded the Boko Haram insurgents whose activities destabilized Nigeria's northeast. He noted that his government was tackling oil theft head-on, especially with the interception of over 220 vessels involved in maritime criminality within Nigeria's exclusive economic zone since 2018 to date. Buhari added that the Nigerian Navy's campaign against crude oil theft has led to the arrest of over 87 oil tankers, recovering 15 million liters of petrol and diesel, and preserving over 3 million barrels of crude oil from theft. In the meantime, the president within the week held the conduct of the 2023 elections, describing it as credible. He, however, regretted that some candidates lost in the exercise. The president made the comment while speaking at a farewell meeting with the outgoing United States Ambassador Mary Leonard at the State House in Abuja. In a statement by the presidential aide, Gabra Shehu, Buhari said given the chance of a free and fair election as well as non-interference as was witnessed on February 25th and March 18th elections, Nigerians have proved to be capable of deciding who leads them without anyone influencing their choices. Moving on from that, the Federation Account Allocation Committee (FAAC) during the week shared 722.677 billion naira February 2023 Federation account revenue to the federal government, state and local government councils. The figure represents a further decrease of 27.493 billion naira compared to 750.17 billion naira shared in January. FAAC disclosed this in a communique issued at the end of its latest meeting in Abuja. According to a statement by its director, Press and Public Relations Bawa Mokwa, the total amount includes gross statutory revenue, value-added tax, electronic money transfer levies, and augmentation from forex equalization account. The communique explained that the federal government received 269.063 billion naira, state received 236.464 billion naira, and the local governments got 173.936 billion naira, while the oil-producing state received 43.214 billion naira as derivation, 13% of mineral revenue. In a separate development, the federal government within the week commenced the enforcement of the petroleum measurement regulations as well as 5 other laws in the midstream and downstream oil sectors. Disclosing this through the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority (NMD) PRA during the official unveiling of the 6 laws by the governing board of the NMD PRA in Abuja, the government warned operators that it would go after anyone who breaks the new laws. It said the 6 regulations were part of the 20 laws developed to guide the midstream and downstream oil sectors, noting that the remaining 14 regulations were being finalized at the Federal Ministry of Justice. The governing board chairman NMD PRA Idare Gogogan said the authority will ensure that the laws were strictly complied with to effectively grow the revenue generated from the oil industry. Meanwhile, the federal government within the week indicated plans to install facial recognition technology at major airports in the country. The Minister of State for Finance, Budget and National Planning, Clem Agba, made this known when he hosted the Japanese ambassador to Nigeria, Matsunaga Kasoji, and a team from NEC Corporation and Information Technology Company in Abuja. Agba stated that the technology, which will be deployed through grant agreements between the Nigerian government and the Japanese counterpart, would easily detect impostors and improve security at airports. He pleaded for the cooperation of all relevant stakeholders, assuring that facial recognition had proved to be very effective globally in securing airports. Elsewhere, former Deputy Senate President E.K. Ekwemadu, his wife Beatrice, and via Dr. Obinna Obita will be sentenced on May 5. They followed their conviction for organ trafficking on Thursday and the first verdict of its kind under the Modern Slavery Act. Ekwemadu, aged 60, his wife Beatrice, aged 56, and Dr. Obinna Obita, aged 51, were found guilty of facilitating the travel of a young man to Britain with a view to his exploitation after a 6-week trial at the Old Bailey. However, the lawmaker's daughter Sonia was cleared by the court. The jury said Ekwemadu, his wife, and their doctor criminally conspired to bring the 21-year-old Lagos street trader to London to exploit him for his kidney. The prosecutor, Herc David Casey, told the court that Ekwemadu and Obita had treated the man and other potential donors as disposable assets, spare parts for reward. He said they entered an emotionally cold commercial transaction with the man. Ekwemadu, who denied the charge, told the court he was the victim of a scam. Obeta, who also denied the charge, claimed the man was not offered a reward for his kidney and was acting altruistically. Beatrice denied any knowledge of the alleged conspiracy. The judge, Justice Jeremy Johnson, will pass sentence on the 5th of May. Move now to the judiciary, where the appeal court sitting in Abuja set aside the judgment of the Osun State Election Petition Tribunal that annulled the victory of Ademola Adeleke of the People's Democratic Party during the July 16, 2022 Osun State governorship election. The tribunal had annulled Adeleke's victory and affirmed Gboyega Oyetola of the All Progressives Congress as the authentic winner of the poll. Recall that the Independent National Electoral Commission had returned Adeleke as the winner of the poll. INEC said that Adeleke polled 403,371 votes to defeat the then-incumbent governor Adegboyega Oyetola of the APC, who got 375,027 votes. On electoral matters, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) within the week announced the candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party (NNPP) Yusuf Kabir as the winner of the Saturday's governorship election. According to the results declared by the returning officer for Kano State governorship election, Ahmed Ibrahim, the NNPP candidate polled 1,019,602 votes to defeat his closest rival, Nasiru Gawuna, of the All Progressives Congress, who polled 890,705 votes.
Yusuf Abba Kabir of NNPP scored 1,019,602 votes. That Yusuf Abba Kabir of NNPP, having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected. Dated this day, 20th March 2023.
Meanwhile, the Electoral Commission within the week also declared the governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress (APC) in Benue State, Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia, as the winner of the March 18 poll and the governor-elect. The Catholic priest won 473,933 votes ahead of his closest rival and People's Democratic Party (PDP) candidate Titus Uba, who scored 223,913 votes. The returning officer, Professor Farouk Kuta, and Vice Chancellor of the Federal University of Technology, Mina, declared Alia the winner of the 2023 governorship poll. In the meantime, the People's Democratic Party (PDP) governorship candidate Dauda Lawal within the week unseated Zamfara State Governor Bello Matawale in the 2023 governorship poll. The INEC Commission declared Lawal the governor-elect with a total of 377,726 votes after he defeated Matawali at the All Progressives Congress APC, who polled 311,976 votes. He was announced as the winner of Gusau, the state capital. Still on electoral matters, foreign observers under the aegis of the International Police Chaplain Sustainable Development and Law Enforcement (IPCSL) within the week said the March 18 governorship and Houses of Assembly elections in Lagos State were peacefully conducted. IPCSL mission said it deployed 182 observers from 13 countries, including the United States, Denmark, Pakistan, Cameroon, Togo, Ghana, and Niger Republic to 2,117 polling units across Nigeria during the elections. They commended the Independent National Electoral Commission, domestic and foreign observers, civil society organizations, political parties, and other stakeholders for the spirit of democracy and patriotism they displayed during the election. The commendation was given by the head of the organization in Nigeria, Joannis Makuvia, at a press conference in Lagos. He, however, condemned the tribal sentiments and violence recorded in some parts of Lagos State and called for peaceful coexistence amongst all Nigerians. In the meantime, the European Union Election Observation Mission (EUEOM) to Nigeria within the week lamented the pervasive violence in the country during the last Saturday's governorship and Houses of Assembly elections. The mission stated that 21 persons were reported to have died across the country in various forms of election-related violence. The European Union mission said there was general voter apathy during the governorship elections as a result of infractions that took place in the President and National Assembly polls. The mission chief observer, Barry Andrews, made the assertions while addressing a press conference in Abuja. On the home front, Akwa Ibom State Governor Odem Emmanuel within the week thanked God for always blessing the state with good leaders and expressed gratitude to the people of the state for their good judgment in choosing Pastor Umoino in this Saturday's gubernatorial election, asserting that the election result is the best answer to tantrums and insults of naysayers. The governor, who stated this when he received the governor-elect Pastor Umoino at the Hilltop Mansion shortly after the declaration of Eno as the winner of the March 18 gubernatorial election, described Umoino as a man with a very large heart and a symbol of the peace that the state stands for, assuring of his successors' magnanimity to accommodate all. He also called on everybody to join hands to move the state forward. Also speaking, the governor-elect, Pastor Umoino, appreciated God for the honor bestowed on him. He equally thanked the incumbent Governor Odem Emmanuel for his foresight of seeing what others may not have seen in him, and also appreciated the people of Akwa Ibom State for entrusting his team with their mandate, and particularly the State First Lady, Martha Emmanuel, for championing the rigorous campaigns that saw to his emergence. He said his victory heralds the advent of a golden era for the people of the state and pledged to consolidate on the achievements of the preceding administrations and to deepen the peace Akwa Ibom has been known for. Government House correspondent Jane Uwa reports that the governor-elect therefore urged fellow contestants to sheath their swords and join hands to build the state, promising a government of inclusiveness.
The entire I want to appreciate members of the campaign council. They worked very hard. They also suffered all kinds of, there's nothing they will say against you. So I really want to appreciate that. In summary, let me appreciate all the main stakeholders, our party, every single person, because I might not be able to count all the women, all the youths, all the elders, all the traditional institutions, every single person played a role. The entire Akwa Ibomites. You have done it before. This weekend, you have done it again. You stood for the truth, and God used you to make this day a reality.
Away from that, the federal government had fixed a new date for the conduct of the 2023 National Population and Housing Census in the country. The chairman of the State Steering Committee for the 2023 census in Ekiti State and special advisor to the governor on budget, economic planning and performance management, Niyi Adebayo, disclosed this during the meeting of the committee in Ado-Ekiti, the state capital. Adebayo hinted that the enumeration exercise had been shifted to the 2nd through to the 7th of May 2023 from its initial date of 29th March through the 2nd of April to allow a heat-free election exercise. The committee chairman, who said that the postponement of the head counts would allow for proper planning and in-depth preparation, called on members of the committee to swing into action to make the exercise a huge success in the country. In another development, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM, within the week said no fewer than 176,408 candidates would sit for this year's optional mock unified tertiary matriculation examination, mock UTME. The exam body said notification slips for candidates who had registered for the mock UTME, scheduled for Thursday the 30th of March 2023, is ready for printing. In a statement issued by the head Public Affairs and Protocol of JAM, Fabian Benjamin, the board urged all candidates for the mock UTME to visit JAM website for their notification slips. The board reiterated that the scheduled commencement time for the examination is sacrosanct, while restating its zero tolerance for examination malpractice. Still to come in the news.
Dropping 14%.
Federal government raises fuel supply to avert price hike. Do stay with us.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Thanks for staying tuned, and now to the rest of the news. In Africa, over the week, it has determined that all warring parties in the brutal war in northern Ethiopia have committed war crimes, said the EU. Speaking, the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who visited Ethiopia to meet Ethiopian government and Tigrayan officials, said his department had carefully reviewed the laws and the facts to determine the crimes. He reportedly accused members of the Ethiopian National Defense Force, Eritrean Defense Forces, Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, and Amhara forces of committing war crimes during the 2-year bloody conflict. He also blamed the Ethiopian and Eritrean Defense Forces as well as Amhara forces of committing crimes against humanity, including murder, rape, and other forms of sexual violence and persecution. He urged the governments of Ethiopia and Eritrea as well as the TPLF to hold those responsible for the atrocities accountable. In Africa, China within the week condemned the killing of Chinese nationals by militants in Central African Republic (CAR) outside the capital Bangui. A statement from the Foreign Ministry said that Chinese President Xi Jinping had called for severe punishment for the perpetrators. The mayor of the central Bambari town disclosed to newsmen that 9 bodies were found dead and 2 wounded in the attack. Meanwhile, the Chinese embassy in Bangui has urged citizens to avoid traveling outside the capital following the killings, raising the alert levels to very high. It said its government would work with embassies and governments to safeguard its citizens in African countries. Elsewhere, Tanzanian Health Ministry within the week said a mysterious disease that killed 5 people has been identified as Marburg hemorrhagic fever. According to the ministry, the virus causes high fever, often accompanied by bleeding and organ failure. It is part of a group of viruses that includes Ebola. Tanzania's Health Minister Umi Mwalimu urged citizens to stay calm, saying the government had managed to control the spread of the disease. She disclosed that 3 patients are currently receiving hospital treatment and 161 contacts are being traced by the authorities. In the meantime, South Africa's Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor within the week said that the government will have to discuss the arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court (ICC) against Russian President Vladimir Putin before considering any action. Reports say Putin is scheduled to travel to South Africa for the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa summit in August. Recall that the ICC on the 17th of March issued an arrest warrant against President Putin over alleged war crimes in Ukraine. Pandor said, as a signatory to the Rome Statute, South Africa is legally bound to detain Putin and bring him to trial, adding that the authorities will first consult with the Russian side regarding the warrant. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin within the week said he gives priority to relations with African countries as he looks forward for international partnership in the face of Western sanctions over the invasion of Ukraine. Putin said Russia will supply food to needy countries in Africa free of charge if an agreement on Ukrainian grain exports is not renewed. According to him, Russia will share its technologies with African nations and continue helping them produce electricity. President Putin made this known at a conference on Russian-African relations in Moscow. Reports say Putin is scheduled to host African leaders in June for the Russia-Africa Summit, the second of its kind. On the foreign scene, within the week, the U.S. urged Chinese President Xi Jinping to press Vladimir Putin to halt the war crimes in Ukraine as the two meet for official talks since the invasion. According to the White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, seeking a ceasefire will not be enough. He noted that any ceasefire that does not address the removal of Russian forces from Ukraine would effectively ratify Russia's illegal conquest. In the meantime, an explosion in the north of annexed Crimea within the week destroyed the Russian missiles being transported by rail. the Russian-installed head of the city of Donskoy, said the area had been attacked by drones. Ukraine announced the explosions but did not explicitly say it was behind the attack. Reports say, if confirmed, it would be a rare foray by Ukraine's military into Crimea, which has been annexed since 2014. Still on the foreign scene, King Charles III's state visit to France had been postponed as the nation faces further protest over pension reforms. France's LC Palace said that the decision was taken due to a 10th day of protests planned. Meanwhile, the trip to Paris and Bordeaux was due to begin on Sunday. But both cities saw some of the worst violence on Thursday since the protests began in January. Recall that officials had earlier insisted that there were no known threats to the trip. Moving on to business, within the week, the federal government, through its Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, increased the supply of premium motor spirit PMS, popularly called petrol, to independent oil marketers in a bid to avert a further hike in the pump price of the commodity. Oil marketers confirmed that the National Oil Company listened to their demands for an increase in the volumes of PMS released to independent filling stations so as to curb the widening disparity in the cost of petrol. They stated that the move by the NNPCL had now improved the availability of products in retail outlets operated by independent marketers, adding that the national oil firm also promised to sustain the supply. Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Nigeria CBN Monetary Policy Committee within the week voted to increase the benchmark interest rate by 50 basis points to 18%. This was disclosed by the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele while reading the communique of the second MPC meeting. He said the committee also pegged the liquidity ratio at 30%. The tightening of the rate, according to the Apex Bank governor, is expected to curtail inflation, currently put at 21%. Still in business, power generation companies GenCos within the week listed some issues affecting operators and investors in the Nigerian electricity supply industry, NESAI. Executive Secretary of the Association of Power Generation Companies, APGC, Joy Ogaji, in an interview said government should resolve the gas supply challenge that has been hampering power generation, make foreign exchange accessible, and ensure adequate risk protection mechanism for GenCos against breach of contract. She also solicited government's intervention to resolve all interface issues between distribution companies, DISCOs, and Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, enhancement of increased capacity utilization, security of power facilities from increased community hostility, and resistance to payment for electricity. Ogaji noted that failure to resolve these issues will discourage would-be investors in the sector. Meanwhile, the value of electronic utility payments fell by 44.86% in February, despite the Central Bank of Nigeria's Naira redesign policy aimed at growing cashless transactions. According to data from the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System, NIBBS, the value of utility bills payment fell to 90.93 billion naira from 164.89 billion naira in January, signifying a two-year low for e-bill payment. According to NIBBS, e-bills payments were expected to grow in 2022 when the CBN announced its Naira redesign policy and withdrawal limits while encouraging customers to use alternative channels. Meanwhile, the National President Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents in Nigeria, Victor Olojo, said the policy depressed the economy and led many point-of-sale terminal operators to shut down their businesses. Still to come in the news. Guinea-Bissau clips Super Eagles' wings. Just stay with us.
Being spooked.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian. From issues on politics,
hello Nigeria, I remain committed.
Security,
education, health,
lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken
every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
Thanks for staying tuned. And now in conclusion of the news this week. In health, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, said 78 million children in Nigeria are at the risk from a convergence of three water-related threats. This was made known in a press statement by the UNICEF Nigeria Chief of Water, Sanitation and Hygiene, Dr. Jane Bevan, and made available to newsmen. The statement, released ahead of the United Nations 2023 Water Conference in New York from March 22nd through to 24th, 2023, co-hosted by Tajikistan and the Netherlands, called for urgent action to address the water crisis in Nigeria. Reports say the United Nations 2023 Water Conference, formerly known as the 2023 Conference for the Midterm Comprehensive Review of Implementation of UN Decade for Action on Water and Sanitation 2018 through 2028, will result in a summary of proceedings from the United Nations General Assembly President Caspar Korosi that will feed into the 2023 session of the UN High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. In health, the Director General of the World Health Organization, WHO, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, within the week urged countries to work together to prevent further epidemics and pandemics. The WHO boss, who made the call in a video posted on his official Twitter page, noted that working together through an agreed pandemic accord can help countries to forestall and adequately prepare for future epidemics and pandemics. According to him, the Pandemic Accord is an agreement between nations to work in cooperation with each other, not in competition, to prepare for and respond to epidemics and pandemics, adding that it is essential to emphasize that the accord is negotiated by countries for countries and will be adapted and implemented by countries in accordance with their national laws. Meanwhile, nutritionist and dietitian Olushola Malomo within the week warned Nigerians against high consumption of eggs, noting that it may increase the risk of brain cancer and hypertension. The expert explained that eggs are the main source of dietary cholesterol, advising that they must be consumed moderately. According to him, 1 egg per day is recommended for children from 6 months to 5 years, stressing that people who are older and overweight should not eat more than 3 eggs in a week. He added that our concern about excessive intake of eggs in Africa and indeed Nigeria is the elevation of cholesterol, particularly the unhealthy one, which even controlled can predispose one to some forms of cardiovascular diseases. In sports, Guinea-Bissau stunned Nigeria 0-1 in a 2023 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier at the Moshood Abiola National Stadium in Abuja yesterday. A 29th-minute goal was all the visitors needed to shock the 2013 AFCON winners on home soil and hand them a famous victory. Meanwhile, former England manager Roy Hodgson within the week was reappointed as Crystal Palace boss until the end of the season. Patrick Vieira, who replaced Hodgson at the Selhurst Park in July 2021, was sacked by Palace on Friday after a 12-match winless run in all competitions. Hodgson, 75, managed Watford from January to May 2022, leaving after they were relegated to the Championship. He had said he did not expect to take another managerial job in the Premier League. Meanwhile, Palace are 12th in the top flight, but only 3 points above the relegation zone following Sunday's 4-1 defeat by Arsenal. Still in sports, captain Sarah Hunter will retire after England's opening Women's Six Nations match against Scotland in her home city of Newcastle today. The 37-year-old back row forward is the world's most capped women's player with 140 caps and is also England's most capped player, male or female. Reports say since her debut in 2007, Hunter has won 1 World Cup and 10 Six Nation titles, including 9 Grand Slams. On our entertainment news, Nigerian music megastar Davido had announced 3 shows set to hold in Nigeria, the United Kingdom and the United States for his upcoming album Timeless. Davido announced via his Instagram account that he will be performing in Lagos, New York and London. The show, tagged A Timeless Night with Davido, is set to kick off in New York on the 2nd of April 2023 at the Irving Plaza. The second show will take place in London on April 5th, 2023 at Coco, while the third and final show will be held in Lagos on April 23rd at the Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. The performances will be Davido's first since he performed at the closing ceremony at the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. Davido is set to release his 4th album titled Timeless on the 31st of March 2023. In 2022, it could be recalled that Davido released Stand Strong, which remains his only release ahead of his upcoming album, which will feature 17 tracks. Meanwhile, MultiChoice, in partnership with African Magic, within the week announced the return of the 9th edition of the prestigious African Magic Viewers' Choice Awards, AMVCA, set to hold between May 18, and 2023. The 3-day events will be a celebration of film production talent, culture, fashion, music, and other elements of the African entertainment. Head of Content and West Africa Channels at MultiChoice, Busola Tejumola, reviewed the schedule for this year's AMVCA at a press conference. According to her, the AMVCA has in the last 8 years become the unit by which excellence is measured and recognized, and this 9th edition of the AMVCA stands in a unique position, being hosted in the 20th year of African Magic operations in Nigeria, and at a point when cinematic output across Africa is entering a phase of global recognition and appreciation. Meanwhile, the nominees for this year will be revealed by 7 p.m. on April 9, 2023 across all African Magic channels. Once this is done, the voting portal will open ahead of highly awaited award ceremony. Still in entertainment, Canadian singer The Weeknd within the week was given a place in the Guinness World Records as the most popular artist on the planet. The singer just broke 2 new records on Spotify, one for most monthly listeners in Spotify history by breaching the 111 million mark, and another for being the first artist to breach the 100 million monthly listeners mark in general. He recently joined Michael Jackson as the only artist with multiple #1 songs from 3 of his albums, thanks to his recently released Die For You remix with Ariana Grande. The 2020 track Blinding Light is also the biggest song ever, achieving the most Spotify streams, and it's also the longest charting song on the Billboard Hot 100 of all time, with a total of 90 weeks on the charts. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do well to follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You have been watching the news this week, a recap of major stories within the week. My name is Uyai Anyeka, and thanks for watching, and do enjoy the rest of your weekend.